Welcome back. We keep seeing all of these stories about miracle vaccines or miracle DNA manipulations. And I just want to focus on what's going on with gene editing of DNA for a moment here. I've talked in the past about how cattle association people, and of course, when you're raising cattle, um, a lot of people have pushed back against the dairy industry, said, oh, they're inhumane to the cattle. No, they're not. I mean, they're not even raising them for meat. These are dairy cows. That's their whole business. They take very good care of these cows. That's all of their money is tied up in these cows. So they baby these cows. But the animal activists don't like that, and they try to shut that down. But the people, even who are, whether it's dairy cows or whether it's meat cows, that they're doing it, they try to maximize the cattle in different ways. And we've just had a very eye-opening expose of some genetic engineering by a company that's called Recombinetics, where things didn't exactly go the way that they said they were going to go. We're told all the time how we got this new miraculous tool, CRISPR, right? And it's able to go in and just surgically edit the DNA. But in the past, we've had, before this story just came out, we've had cattle breeders who said, well, just understand, because they're ahead of the curve on this. This is coming in and being applied to humans. Lots of talk about how they're going to do this to humans. You've already had the situation in China where this was done by one individual. He said, I experimented on human babies. I made them immune to HIV. It's like, you ought to be very skeptical about that. And you ought to be very skeptical about this tool. Cattle breeders have looked at this and they said, this CRISPR situation is not a scalpel. It's more like a chainsaw. It's actually a very crude tool. It is a tool to edit the DNA, but it has some very unexplained consequences. And so let's take a look at what happened with Recombinetics. The gene editing of DNA inside living cells is considered by many to be the preeminent technological breakthrough of the new millennium, writes greenmedinfo.health. And of course, in late July, the latest incident of this, the FDA analyzed the whole genomes of 2 calves that were born in 2016. The calves were edited by a biotech startup, Recombinetics, using a gene editing method called TALENs. The 2 animals had become biotech celebrities for having a genetic change that removed their horns. So when they breed cattle, the horns are something of an issue. They don't want the cattle to hurt each other or hurt humans, so they typically take that out. So if Recombinetics could genetically engineer this so that the cattle didn't have horns, that would be a big win for them. They insisted that their 2 edited animals were extremely precisely altered to possess only the trait that would remove the horns. However, the FDA researchers found that was not the case. Each of the Recombinetics calves possessed 2 antibiotic-resistant genes, along with other segments of superfluous bacteria DNA. So you understand? They had an antibiotic resistance genes. And they also had some bacteria DNA that got in there as well. That's a bit of a problem. And that's a different problem than the other cattle researchers had found. They said, we found that when we did the splice, it's supposed to be a particular spot in the DNA that they would cut, and then that same quote-unquote tool, that segment that would have it, that would do the cut, would also have some DNA that would be adapted by the body to take the place of what they just cut out. But they said, we found that it made some changes elsewhere, kind of at random. And now these people are finding that they also had contamination from bacteria, and that they also made an unexpected change in another area. The FDA finding has attracted some media attention. You're not seeing this headline most places, right? Mainly focusing on the incompetence of Recombinetics. But following the FDA findings, Brazil terminated a breeding program that they'd already begun using these techniques from Recombinetics. But the FDA's findings are potentially trivial besides another recent discovery about gene editing, that foreign DNA from surprising sources can routinely find its way into the genome of edited animals. All DNA editing is really the cutting of DNA by enzymes. These are supposed to act only at chosen sites. However, the cut creates a double-stranded break that severs and therefore severely damages a chromosome. I want you to keep this in mind when you hear these miracle cures touted about DNA editing for humans. I mean, this is a very, very dangerous area that we're getting into. And it is going faster than people are really thinking about the consequences of. And just go back and think about, do this. Go onto YouTube and take a look at some of these videos, these optimistic videos about what life in the future was going to be like, going back to the 1950s, the 1960s, or even the 1970s. I enjoy going back and looking at those sometimes. Here is the kitchen of the future. Sometimes they get it right. Sometimes what we have today is a lot more elegant than what they had back then. But you never saw anybody, when they're talking about the kitchen of the future, you never saw them talking about how their refrigerator was going to be hooked up to something called the internet and how the CIA was going to be spying on you through that. That's what David Petraeus was bragging about 6 or 7 years ago as director of the CIA. Yeah, you know, we've got all this smart home stuff. It's going to be wired to the internet, and it's going to be talking about you. They never thought about that downside of these types of things. And they never really realized some of the health effects of the aluminum TV dinners or the microwave dinners and so forth. So, you know, you go back and you look at their vision of the future and compare that, and then think about how they sold you all of these ideas of technology that never had any failures, never had any downside, never had any unexpected consequences. Yeah, you know, technology is great, and I'm all for it. That's why I became an engineer, but I also, after becoming an engineer and looking at technology a lot, I realized that it can be abused, especially if it is concentrated in the hands of a few individuals, like the technocratic elite in Silicon Valley and with government. And that's exactly what Eisenhower warned us in his vision of the future when he talked about the military academic industrial complex, how these people would essentially take over all research and how for profit they would get us involved in war and the various motives that would be driving these people. So just understand, when you look at these miracle cures, what is really happening. You're cutting the DNA. You're severely damaging a chromosome. And the enzymes most commonly used by the researchers for this cutting are the FUC1 enzyme for the TALENs type of editing. I'm sorry, that's FOC, pronounced the same way, I guess. The Cas9 for CRISPR, or the zinc finger for the ZFN. Subsequent to this cutting event, the cell effects a repair, and this DNA repair is usually inaccurate because the natural repair mechanism in most cells is somewhat random. The result is called the edit. Researchers typically must select from many edits in order to obtain the one that they desire. And so when you look at this, the downside of all this is that you get extraneous DNA contamination put in there as well. Not only do they have to understand which genes they're going to cut out and which ones they're going to put in to fix a particular situation and hope that they don't break something else, they also have to worry about the DNA strand actually breaking somewhere else. And then they have to worry about contaminants, which would be other species coming in. They call that transgenic. Yeah, there we go. That's the new thing to be concerned about. Not transgender, but transgenic.
Our powerful line of fluoride-free products is the perfect gift for yourself or others who are exploring a healthier, happier lifestyle. With options ranging from toothpaste to oral spray, it's easy to find the perfect option for you. Super Blue Toothpaste is the fan-favorite fluoride-free toothpaste that every InfoWarrior loves. Powered by iodine and nano silver, it's designed to deliver a powerful clean while supporting good oral health and fresh breath. Available in 2 refreshing flavors. Enjoy a minty fresh flavor made with peppermint oil or try our bubblegum flavor. Super Blue Immune Gargle is the only option for on-the-go immune system support like no other. With the scientifically proven patented ingredient Silver Sol in 3 different sizes, you can take it wherever you go. Support good oral health with our one-of-a-kind Super Blue products. Don't miss out on revolutionizing your morning routine. Head to InfoWarsStore.com and get our line of Super Blue products today.